Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is nutrition, and we're going to discuss eating to build muscle while losing fat. So often I get asked, can you lose fat and build muscle at the same time? Well, within like a single second, no. So those processes are kind of opposing in the sense to where we only burn stored body fat when our body is in a caloric deficit, meaning like we don't have enough calories coming in from our food, so therefore our body has to burn stored calories to make up for what we're missing from our food. And that's what body fat is, it's stored calories. So our body at some point in time felt the need to store calories away as protection, and that turned into body fat. And now in today's society, we don't really like it. We have too much of it, which makes us unhealthy, and or aesthetically, we're not liking the amount that we have. So body fat is deemed most often, like in today's society, is you have to have some to stay alive, of course, but we almost all have a little more than we want, and or we're all kind of maintaining or watching the amount that we have. So it's not that body fat is like the worst thing in the world. If you didn't have any, you'd pretty much die. But we have a lot of concern over it nowadays. So back in the day, whenever food wasn't readily available, having stored body fat was freaking awesome, because if you could only get food today and you had a bunch of calories right now, like we killed an animal and we get to eat the animal, or you harvest plants and you get to eat the plants. So people would eat that, and then if they had a day or two or three without food, their body could store the excess calories that they had on that eating day to make up for the lack of food on the subsequent days. So our body developed the ability to store body fat, which was freaking awesome. It helped us stay alive. Nowadays, like I said, we just don't need it as much because we have food everywhere we want. So within a mile radius of me is probably 1 million Oreos. So we don't really need as much stored body fat as our body thinks we do. So we want to get rid of body fat. And in order to do that, we have to eat in a caloric deficit, meaning we don't eat quite as much calories as we need. So we've talked about this before, and we broke down the science of this in past podcasts about like how much do we need. And that was in a podcast about sedentary lifestyles. So somebody says like, well, if I'm not working out on a regular basis, do I really need to eat? If I just don't eat during the day since I'm not working out, isn't that great? And the answer is no. So that is not healthy. So because we actually do need calories, even while we're like just awake, but not necessarily kind of active in the gym. So we broke down the science of that in podcast number 390, titled Proper Nutrition for Sedentary Workers. And we talked about, in general, you need about 70% of your daily calories. If you've estimated out that about 2,000 calories keeps you where you are. Okay, let's just make the math easy for me. Then 70% of those calories, which would be 1,400 calories, is kind of what you need just to be staying alive, normal human being. And there's actually probably slightly more than that. But what this refers to is kind of something we can think of it as, is we have about a 30% kind of window that we can play with, where it's an appropriate amount for us to reduce our calories by, in order to lose body fat, but not like wither away and die and have too low of calories coming in to where our body would actually fight the process. Now, I would argue that you don't need to do 30%, like, 5%, 10% reduction, stuff like that is like more sustainable long term. But how much do you have to play with? We could argue somewhere between 20 to 30%. So that means if I have, a daily need of 2,000 calories, 10% of that is 200. So you technically would have, you can argue, say, 200 to 600 calories worth of playing around with how much you reduce your calories by in order to lose fat, but still have it be a sustainable kind of, the body won't fight the process kind of aspect. Now, there's a lot of caveats to what I just said, but let's go with that in a sense. So can we lose body fat in a singular moment? Absolutely. We're in a caloric deficit, say roughly around up to 30% of our daily needs, so we can lose body fat. But what do I need to build muscle? In order to build muscle, I actually have to have a surplus of calories around. So that's where they're in opposition. So the reason why I have to have a surplus of calories is I have to have all of the calories I need to maintain normal daily healthy function. And then I have to have calories available to build new tissue. So there's the work that we have to get done every day. then there's the stuff we add on to it. So that's what muscle building is. There's we already have a crap load of stuff we have to do our day. Our body is busy. And then if we want to make it do extra work, we have to give it extra fuel, extra time, for example, in our personal experience. So what you would do is we would have to have a caloric surplus. Now, if I eat a bunch of extra carbs, is that going to help me build muscle? Arguably, it can if it's quote-unquote protein sparing, meaning your body will burn the excess carbs and leave some of the protein that it had previously been burning for fuel, but that's not going to happen for most people in most circumstances. So that's very special circumstances. So for most people, the best way for them to ensure that they're going to get more muscle is out of their excess calories is to eat more protein. So there are exceptions to this, of course, and there's a lot of individual variances. But in general, more calories helps you build muscle. If you want to have the best chance of kind of building the muscle without building a ton of fat, then you want to get your extra calories from protein, not from carbohydrates. So, if losing fat requires a caloric deficit, and if building muscle requires a caloric surplus, how in the world can we do both at the same time? Well, let's not think of it as the same time as in a singular second of the day. Let's think of it as a day at a time, or a week, or a month, or a program, which might be like, say, 12 weeks or 16 weeks. So can you build muscle at some points of the day and burn off body fat while you're kind of halting the muscle building process at other parts of the day? Yes. So building building muscle does not necessarily mean you're building body fat. And losing body fat doesn't necessarily mean that you're losing muscle. So these two processes aren't in complete opposition in regards to while one is happening, you're decreasing the other. There actually is the ability to work on one while pausing the other, then switch and work on the other one while pausing the first one. So this is kind of like if we're moving two pieces of, I have no clue how to make an analogy for this right now. But if I want to move two things ahead, but I can only push one at a time, I would push one, then until I got a little tired, or I started kind of getting far away from the first one. So I would walk back, push the first one. The second one would stay there where it was. So you just kind of push one, you walk over, push the other. Walk over, push the first one. Walk over, push the second one. You just go back and forth, but you keep moving both along. So that's the idea of what we do with muscle building and fat loss. If we want to achieve both at the same time, is you eat in a controlled manner to where when you're building muscle, you don't have a surplus beyond what you need for building the muscle, which would then cause you to build body fat or retain more body fat. And when you do fat loss, you don't restrict your calories so significantly that your body starts to reduce muscle tissue to try to adjust for the lowered amount of calories to reduce its metabolism. So the best way for you to build muscle and lose fat at the same time is to do each slow and steady, rather than extreme one versus the other. So if you do muscle building too extremely, meaning way too much of a caloric surplus, you will add additional body fat, which is countering to our goal of doing both. If you try to lose body fat, but you take so many calories away that your body freaks out and tries to reduce its metabolism to adjust to lower calories, part of it reducing its metabolism will be getting rid of muscle tissue. So our goal is to do a little bit of both throughout the day. And then over time, within a month, within 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you get to see both happen. But it isn't necessarily super fast within 30 days I lose 30 pounds or within 30 days I gain 30 pounds. We don't really want that. So chances are if you're wanting to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, you're not going to see much of a weight change. Meaning as you lose the weight of the body fat, you're gaining the weight of the muscle tissue. So sometimes when you do what's called recomposition, so your body composition is usually referred to as the amount of muscle you have and the amount of fat you have. If I get rid of fat and I build muscle, I have made my body have a better composition of what it's made of. I have more muscle, less fat. But they're opposing in weight, so sometimes your weight doesn't change. So how do we do this nutritionally is we focus on trying to control the top components of a diet in the most controlled manner with the most significance of attention paid to what matters the most. So way back when in podcast 41, titled Diet Right, What Matters Most, we talk about the top components of a diet. Calories is number one because it determines the direction of a diet. Number two is protein intake, making sure you have enough protein that your body is healthy, it can repair itself, it has good kind of water regulation, good muscle repair, whole bunch of good healthy stuff when it comes to protein. Number three is meal timing, which can be referred to, kind of thought of as, we eat more calories when we're more active, we eat less calories when we're less active. Number four, of significance, meaning that the thing I'm about to tell you about, number four, is not as significant as those first three. Okay, and number four is what you eat, whether it's white rice, brown rice, or quinoa, for example. Whether you're eating, broccoli or kale, or what your vegetables are. So what type of carb you're eating, what type of fat, what type of protein you're eating, they do matter. They absolutely do matter, but they don't matter as much as calories, protein intake amount, and meal timing. So most often when people don't do a diet, they start at number four. They think of cleaning up the types of foods they eat. And that's only the fourth most significant thing. So you're actually starting in a very insignificant part. And you're actually kind of what I would consider as kind of wasting time and effort. Why not focus on the most important things rather than a fourth most important thing? Okay, you don't put all your eggs in the fourth basket. Okay? So, what we want to do is the general concept of trying to build muscle and lose fat at the same time involves eating more before and after you work out, and then eating less at other times. What do I mean by more and less? Like compared to what? Would be compared to your daily needs. So if you found out that eating around 2,000 calories kept you where you are, you would eat slightly more than that. Like let's say, for example here, 2,000 calories divided by 5 meals is 400 calories. Meaning that in general, if you had 5 meals a day, you'd eat 400 calories per meal. Well, what we're saying is eat more than 400 before and after you work out. Maybe 600 calories before you work out, 600 calories after you work out. But then eat less than 400 at other times. Meaning you only eat maybe 250 to 300 calories at your other meals of the day. So you have, before the workout, a surplus, meaning you fill up your gas tank, you have tons of energy, you can do crazy, awesome, fun things in the workout. This is important because it maximizes the stimulus of the workout, meaning it'll promote your body to do the best kind of changing effects that you would like to get from your workout. Then after the workout, you want to have a lot of calories, so that way your body can fuel the changes that we want. So repair and muscle building. Then at all other times of the day, you want to be in a slight deficit to promote the fat being burned off. So that's in a sense what we're looking to do, is find out what our average meal intake should be. Eat slightly more than that at the meals before and after a workout. Eat slightly less than that at the meals all other times. So that is the general premise of it. Now, the specifics of it is like, what do you eat? So before you do training, and this would be resistance training, muscle damage resulting training, you would want to eat carbs and protein. But after the resistance training, you'd eat protein, and then it depends on what you're going to do after the workout, whether you'd have carbs or fats. If you work out in the morning and you're still going to be active the rest of the day, you'd like to have carbs because they're kind of a faster, easier digesting energy source. If you're after your workout, you're going to bed, then you just want to have proteins and fats because the fats will help slow down the absorption of the protein and make it more sustainable throughout the night and give your body a longer sense of repair. So, what you eat after the workout depends on what your activities are for the next 3 to 5 hours, so to speak, after the workout. And then the rest of the time, you typically want to focus on proteins and slow digesting carbs and fats. So, those are some of the specifics. But again, in general, find out what your daily kind of average caloric need for a meal is. Eat more than that before and after your workout. Eat less than that at all other times. That's how you do it. It's that simple in the sense of the premise or the concept you're trying to achieve. Now, is it difficult to set up? Kind of, sort of, maybe, yes. So, in my opinion, it isn't because I have a good amount of knowledge behind me. But the hardest part for most people is getting past their bullshit. So they're going to say, well, I don't have time to prepare foods. Yeah, you do. A lot of foods don't even require preparedness. So you can get a package of like prepackaged thing of like cashews or almonds or pecans or nuts You know, you can get those and they take 0 time to prepare. You pull the bag, rip the bag open, you shove it in your face. Done. There are so many food options that are good. Okay, they're adequate for your need and they don't require preparation. There's a ton. So when you let go of the concern of the fourth component, okay, whether something's brown rice or white rice, when it really doesn't matter much, okay, and you focus on calories, protein intake, and timing, you'll find that fourth component isn't that significant. A lot of times people feel like, oh, I just can't prepare the right foods because they're so stuck on what the right food is. And it is not the most important thing. So, for example, cottage cheese and fruit is a great meal of protein and carbs. Okay, cottage cheese requires no effort, some refrigeration or a cooler. Okay, and fruit requires no effort, you just bite into it. So you can have cottage cheese and fruit, there's no prep time needed. And to eat a whole tub of cottage cheese and a piece of fruit, you can get that done in under 5 minutes. I've timed myself. Okay? So you can get this stuff in if you don't accept your bullshit excuses and you find a way to make it work. Do you have to make some sacrifices? Yes. But does it have to be a miserable process? Hell no. So if most people get rid of their bullshit excuses around why they can't eat right, and they put in slight effort, okay, they can achieve this. So the differences that you'll see from individuals, like what does make it kind of hard to figure out, is, well, what is the amounts of foods I need? So we talk about this in a podcast about calories. So we have a podcast 153 titled How Many Calories Do I Need? In that podcast, we help you kind of figure out how many calories you need per day. That will then tell you how many calories you need per meal, and then you'll know what to adjust off of. So that tells you your amounts. Okay? Then we have timing around kind of work and family issues. So if I have certain people where they might work out in the day on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but then Thursday and Friday they have to work out in the evenings due to family stuff, that does change things. It does make it like, okay, well, when do I eat this? When do I eat that? So there are some differences and challenges there. Then also food preferences. I have a lot of people I work with. They have nutritional kind of issues, such as lactose intolerance, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, a whole bunch of other crazy shit that people can have. So we have to find ways to work around that. So it is actually difficult, in a sense, to work around the individual differences. But the concept is easy. Eat more and before and after your workouts. Eat less at other times. So let's go through some quick examples just so you can see kind of the ways that this can apply. So I have a female client right now getting ready for a wellness competition, which is a form of an aesthetic competition, meaning they get on stage and they're judged by their leanness and muscularity. So she wants to get ready for wellness, which is a certain category that involves having thicker legs than she has now, but you don't want to build the upper body. She already has enough upper body muscle. She just has to thicken out her thighs and her glutes. And we have to tone her abs and kind of tighten her midsection. So we have training that's doing all of that. So we're going to skip past the training components. But nutritionally, she works out in the morning. So she gets up in the morning. She has a fast digesting protein. There are different rates of digestion when it comes to protein. So certain foods digest slow, certain foods digest fast. So we have a fast digesting protein, and we have a carb source. So her example is like cottage cheese and fruit, for example. That would work totally fine. So she'll have that. Some people do like a protein shake, for example, in fruit. So that would be another good example. So she'll have that, so that way she has some calories in her stomach, and she has some fuel before she works out. She then goes and does a workout. After her workout, she has proteins and carbs because she then goes to work. So we still want to keep that gas tank full while she's at work and have it full enough that her body will use the protein from that meal to repair and build the muscle. So then at her next meal, which would be like her mid-morning kind of meal, she again has protein and carbs. And again, we have a surplus for her because she's already relatively lean, meaning we can have more meals in surpluses than we need to have in deficits. Then at lunch, we have a meal that's at her caloric need. And then in her afternoon and evening meal, she has a decrease. She has a deficit. This is helping her have enough energy so she can work out, enough calories during the middle of the day so the protein can be used to build and repair new muscle. Then we reduce calories for the rest of the day in energy nutrients. We reduce the carbohydrates and fats, but we keep the proteins high. So that way the excess protein can be used towards muscle repair and building, but the deficit in carbs and fats promotes some body fat being burned off for fuel. So that's one example. We have another physique client. He works out in the morning and he follows actually a very similar schedule. So just because they're male versus female doesn't really change anything about the rules. It will change the amounts because the male is much larger than the female, but the rules and the concepts are actually exact same for their timing. Then I have powerlifting clients, so clients who are based on strength, so they're not even based on aesthetics, but they want to build as much muscle as they can. They want to be as lean as they can because they have to compete in weight classes. So if they're too heavy, they're kind of just going to, like, say if they have, 200 pounds of muscle, a muscle physique, but they have 40 pounds of fat on them, then they have to compete at 242 pounds against people who are 40 pounds heavier in muscularity than them. So it's better for them to stay lean and be able to compete at the 198 class. So they want to be as lean as they can to have the best kind of composition for their weight class and strength relation. So they actually do the same thing. So a lot of them lift in the evenings. So an example of that would be they wake up in the morning. They have a deficit in breakfast. So they have calories. They eat something, but they don't eat in excess. They eat fats and proteins. And that gives their body a little bit of fuel, but it doesn't give it all the fuel it needs. So therefore, it starts picking off body fat. The next meal of the day, the mid-morning, we have fats and proteins again, and again in a deficit. Then at lunch, we have even to the amount that they need per day, okay, their normal amount, and we have carbs and protein. Then their mid-afternoon, we actually have a surplus of carbs and protein. Then they go work out, and then after the workout, we have actually, if they're very lean, they'll have carbs, protein, and fats in a singular meal to help replenish glycogen, also have the fats and the protein to help repair overnight. If they need to get leaner, then we just have fats and protein. We skip the carbs, and we don't let their glycogen replenish throughout the night, and we wait the next day to do that at lunch and the afternoon meal. So that can be done for strength athletes as much as it can be done for physique athletes, okay, aesthetic athletes. Then I even have people who, like I've had women and even men, where they get out of college and they played a sport in college, but they don't really want the muscle they have now, and they want to kind of have a trimmer, slim look. So men, this is often coming out of football, so offensive linemen or big, heavy positions where they just don't need to be a heavyweight anymore. So they want to learn how to lose the body fat but not lose muscle. So they eat this way. They just focus more meals in a deficit and less meals in a surplus. But they control their deficits to make sure it's not too much that they would be promoting muscle loss. Then I had women who maybe did, maybe volleyball, maybe softball, or maybe they have thicker thighs and glutes and maybe more body weight than they'd really want to have. So now after college, they want to take some of that muscle off. Well, you can actually eat to cause muscular loss. So we have them work out, but we don't give them the appropriate calories they need to replenish and repair everything. So you can actually slowly over time reduce muscle mass, but not have such a deficit that you cause any joint issues or just overall fatigue and kind of feeling miserable. So by messing around with meal timing and then what nutrients you're having at which times, that can have a huge effect on helping you balance the goal of losing body fat and building muscle. So, can it be done? Yes. Is it easy to do? Actually, in concept, hell yes. So, is it difficult to do for individuals? At times it can be yes, trying to figure out how to apply the concept, the general rule, to your individual life. But hopefully in this podcast we gave you some examples, we gave you some ideas. Now, if you are interested, we do offer programming for this. So if you'd like some programming help, of course, we'd be happy to help you. And we charge for it because it helps pay the bills and keep the podcast alive. But hopefully from this podcast, you've learned enough about the idea of it. Okay? And like we said, go check out podcast 153, titled How Many Calories You Need. Figure out how many calories you need per meal. Then, at meals away from your workouts, eat slightly less than that. Say 10, 15, 20% less. Then at meals before and after your workout, eat the opposing surplus, 10 to 15% above. Okay? So that would be the idea of how to do it. If you have any questions along the way, just shoot us an email at brutalironjim@gmail.com. But hopefully this helped. Hopefully it gave you some food for thought and let you know what was actually really possible when it comes to body composition and having the body that you'd like to have. Cool. Okay, if you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. The more people we help, the happier the world will be. Also, if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. The podcast is for you, so we want to know what you want to learn about. You can tell us at our email, brutaliron@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening. And thank you for watching.